Maybe you could set a little bit the scene around artificial intelligence, the work you're doing, and how you think this discussion that we're having today around liability fits into that.
It's split up between businesses on one hand and citizens on the other hand. Businesses, what we want to achieve is basically to create legal certainty and to avoid fragmentation. And if they know their risks, then they can insure themselves. And for citizens, we want to achieve trust. Trust first in the technology itself, because without trust in AI, there's no uptake. The level of protection, which is comparable between victims of damage of AI products and services and victims of traditional technologies. The Commission is following a targeted, risk-based approach. But we want to make a distinction between those which have a specific risk profile and all the others. We are suggesting for consultation the introduction of strict liability coupled with an insurance obligation. So to adapt the burden of proof rules to tackle the challenge which I mentioned earlier, that it is very, very difficult for a victim to prove that a certain damage goes back to a certain output or behavior of an algorithm.
The use of artificial intelligence and the application of this data is really, really natural. And we also concentrated and focused on different questions on the use of AI, such as, will AI shift responsibility, regardless if there is mandatory insurance or not, and the offerages that are in demand that already exist today. What is really, really important is that we have an artificial intelligence framework setting the lines, explaining what is artificial intelligence, what are the risky users, as the Commission just said, and most importantly, how will data be collected and where will data be available to allow insurance companies to assess risks properly in the future.
The area of cars is where we need the least of changes.
How much uptake do you see? How many questions do you see from your customer base around AI and insurance around AI? Is it a big issue yet?
There's no doubt that AI is an accelerator to this change. AI and Internet of Things complexifies the chain of responsibilities and the programmer for that vehicle. Is it the sensor manufacturer, or is it the driver? Our clients are becoming increasingly more complex. They're probably becoming increasingly frustrated, perhaps, that the insurance market is not being as innovative as perhaps it should do. The challenge that the insurance community has around AI, and AI is such a broad, it's such a huge topic, is that lack of empirical evidence.
There needs to be some form of an incentivization that then would help, or we have to find back data, which will be even more difficult. I mean, how have you been looking at this in the cyberspace?
This lack of empirical evidence on losses, I mean, what that Kieran was saying, it's absolutely crucial. We need an AI framework exactly to teach us and for us to, and the market to start evolving in the area of which data is needed in terms of AI, how it can be collected, from whom, by whom. All this work in terms of AI still needs to be done. And if that work is done, then we can, of course, consider mandatory insurance in the future.
One shouldn't exaggerate. I mean, the need for data is a very clear need, to evaluate the risk, actuarial data, to price the risk properly. But one shouldn't exaggerate it either.
The market will evolve and will create new products and new, there will be a market in terms of liability in coverage of IE. There is a chain of liability in terms of specific claims. But what I think we need to take into account as well, it's not only the liability, but in conjunction as well with insurance of financial loss.
What are you looking for from the industry at the moment?
Innovative predictive models will need to be used. So this is actually a cycle. We make sure that when they use artificial intelligence, they do it properly and adequately. Covering AI insurance, we need to make sure that they do it in a prudent way.
An intervention only where it is really necessary and unavoidable. It is very important here that we let the market evolve as much as possible and the market handle the risks.